Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
Friday, and all of today's guests, including Marty Biron, are brought to you by the Bayside Oceanfront Resort. Marty standing by. Get ready for a winter with an unbeatable stay at the Bayside Oceanfront Resort. This season, they're offering 25% off their best available rate all winter long on weekday stays with a minimum 2-night booking, whether it's a cozy coastal getaway or a serene retreat. Don't miss this exclusive offer. Call them directly, 250-248-8333, or visit us at BaysideResortParksville.com to book your event today. Canucks and Sabres, 12 o'clock Pacific. Expansion cousins,
Yes.
Rick. Going all the way back to 1970. We're joined now by former NHL goaltender, former Sabres goaltender, Sabres analyst for MSG, works for TSN and RDS as well. Marty Biron in Buffalo. How are you, sir?
I'm doing really good, yeah. So it's kind of weird because I know it's a 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 Pacific, the day after Thanksgiving in the U.S., but for everybody in Vancouver, it must be like, what the heck? The Canucks are playing at noon on a Friday? This is so weird.
Yeah. It's throwing people off here, but somehow they'll get through it, Marty. It's Canuck hockey. They'll make time for it, even if they're at work. Hey, 1 point out of the playoffs for the Sabres. They've won 7 of their last 10, 11, 10-1 so far. How would you describe their campaign at this point?
Well, it started slow, and obviously they started in Europe, a couple of games in Prague against the New Jersey Devils. It didn't go well. They came back, played better, took a couple of steps forward, a couple of steps back, a couple of steps forward, a couple of steps back. I think they won 3, lost 3, won 3. It was kind of like a weird middle, but of late they've been better. Tage Thompson came back last game and had a really good game. Just the Sabres couldn't score. They couldn't beat Phil Gustafsson. They lost 1-0 to Minnesota after sweeping the West Coast. But I like the additions that they brought in this summer. Ryan McLeod, Beck Malenstein, Jason Zucker has been really good. Bowen Byram, who came from Colorado last year in a Casey Middlestat trade that sent Middlestat to Colorado. He's looked really good on the back end. Started the season with Owen Power, and Power was lights out, like getting points like almost every game. And then they moved Byron with Dahlin, and now Dahlin is lights out. So they're doing well. They're doing well. They're getting goaltending with Luukkonen. It was a slower start. That's why they're probably, in the middle of the pack right now in the Atlantic and the Eastern Conference, but they've played way better. I think they've played like a top 6 team in the Eastern Conference over the last 3 weeks.
Hey, Marty, you mentioned Bowen Byram there. Of course, we're familiar with him here. He's a former Vancouver Giant, a Vancouver Giant star. What happened to all that trade talk about him early in the season? It took a lot of people around here by surprise.
Well, I think a lot of that is contract driven, right? Because you got Dahlin on a big contract, Power on a big contract, and can you have 3 defensemen on big contracts? Because I think Bo Byram is going to demand quite a bit of money, the way that he's playing, and now getting an opportunity out of the Cale Makar shadow to perform. So I think that's the big thing when I look at Bo Byram is, he's going to be up at the end of the year. Can you have 3 defensemen in Buffalo with $6, $7, $8, $10 million contract? Like that may be tough, but I think that the Sabres salary structure is they got Tage Thompson signed long-term. They got Dylan Cousins signed long-term. They got Luukkonen and Nent signed for medium term. So I think they can do it, but it's cooled off now because he's played so well.
Hey, Marty, give us an update on the kid from Chilliwack, Zach Benson. How I know he's had some injuries. I think a concussion, but last year comes out of the draft, plays 71 games. That was really awesome. How's his second year going?
So, Zach, I love Zach. And yes, every time Danny Gare, who's a good BC boy, loves to talk about his boys from BC, and he loves Zach Benson from Chilliwack, and I love Zach too. He's just a hardworking type of player. Now, I looked at him in his first development camp, and I said, he's a Claude Lemieux type guy, and maybe even Brad Marchand type guy. Now, I don't know that he'll have the finish like Brad Marchand and like Claude Lemieux had, but he is very effective. Now this year, he started the season, I think he was hurt in training camp, and Lindy Ruff kept talking about how Zach Benson's not 100%. Zach Benson's not 100%. Then he had to take some games off, but what Lindy Ruff has done is put Benson on lines that needed energy. He's put Benson with Cousins and Quinn. And he's had Benson playing with Thompson and Tuck a little bit when Peterka had the concussion. Then, all of a sudden you have Benson playing with McLeod and Zucker. That line needed energy. Wherever you need energy, Zach Benson has been inserted in that position. He has killed penalties and has done really well killing penalties. So he's only 19 years old. I don't think that we know what his upside is going to be goal-wise, point production-wise, but I can tell you I know what type of player he is. He's a hardworking player that likes to get in your face, and he's definitely one of the fan favorites now because of that.
Hey Marty, you're gonna see Lankinen today for Vancouver. He's been great, and Seelov's is really struggling. And Demko's around the corner. I don't know if he plays on this road trip. He should play on the homestand coming up. But I don't know where the Canucks would be, Marty, without Lankinen. He's simply been their best offseason signing. Has really saved their bacon until Demko comes back.
Can we call that off-season when it's that close to training camp?
Like that's true.
And almost an in-season signing, right? When
it
you
was.
Look at Kevin Lankinen. But okay, so I've always really liked him. I liked him in Nashville. I liked him in Chicago. I've liked him wherever he's been because of the way that he plays. But he hasn't really had the success, and the goalie market was very saturated this summer, so much so that, a guy like James Reimer now in Buffalo took a one-year deal with the Sabres as a third goalie. Really, he was behind Luukkonen and Levi. So I'm looking at Lankinen, and I said, I get it. Teams weren't willing to give him the contract, but I liked the way that he has played, and I think teams were foolish a little bit to look past Kevin Lankinen. And when the Vancouver Canucks signed him, number one, my antennas were like, okay, what's going on with Demko now that they have to get Lankinen? But two, I was like, okay, Sheelovs has been, decent last season. He wasn't the backup to Demko all season last year as Casey DeSmith. And in the playoffs, Sheelovs did a good job, but, it's a small sample. You need 3 goaltenders now in the NHL to be able to go through a season. And some teams even need 4 or 5. I mean, we go around 100 goalies in a season pretty much every year now. And when you consider that there's 32 teams, that's over 3 on average. So I think the Vancouver Canucks did a great job of signing Kevin Lankinen. He's responded well. And without him, I don't know. I think the Canucks would be in a lot of trouble right now.
Hey, Marty, what's going on with the Rangers? 4 straight losses. Now word that they want to make a big trade, a big shakeup. What's going on there? They're still 13th overall in the NHL. What is wrong in New York?
Yeah, they still have a lot of good talents, right? But if it wasn't for Shesterkin and Quick, where would the Rangers be? I think there's a systematic issue right now going on with teams that want to play this man-on-man defensive zone coverage. And look, Peter Laviolette has always been a good teacher of that. He was with Nashville. They were really good. They went to the finals, but you know what they had? They had Pecorino in net. They had Roman Jussi on defense. They had the pieces to be able to play man-on-man in the defensive zone coverage. And with the Rangers, well, you do have Shesterkin, but you don't really have that stud defenseman that will be making that, that stand. Like Adam Fox is great and Lindgren is good, but they're more offensive. Lindgren is more of a stay-at-home, but that pair is more about creating offense. And then Keandre Miller is good offensively, a good skater, but defensively, I think he would benefit from having a better structure defensively. And teams around the NHL now know how to beat the man-on-man. They hang on to puck. They cycle high in the zone. They make the defenseman come all the way to the blue line, and then they do the switch. And it really has been a mess in the defensive zone with the New York Rangers. I think that's the problem. And obviously, Peter Laviolette's had success wherever he's been. So Chris Drury's not going to go to Laviolette and say, hey, you need to change your system. This is terrible. What they're talking about now is our players are underperforming. Their top guys are underperforming. They talked about trading Trouba in the offseason. He had full no movement clause. Now it's not the same thing. If they want to trade Chris Kreider, go ahead, trade Chris Kreider. I can guarantee you there's 31 teams that want Chris Kreider on their team. So I think that would be a mistake. I think you have to change your system in New York a little bit before you start moving players out.
Marty, Four Nations face-off just around the corner, relatively speaking.
Yep.
Team Canada, should Canadians be confident in a possible 1-2 goaltending punch? And this is the big question for Canada going in, of Jordan Binnington and Aiden Hill.
Yeah, so that's what Pierre LeBrun reported, right? That Binnington and Hill would be two of the three. Who knows who the third goalie is going to be? Look, Binnington's a Stanley Cup winner. Aiden Hill's a Stanley Cup winner. I think they can handle high-pressure games, but the Team Canada is definitely not where Canada, U.S., Sweden, and Finland is at when it comes to goaltending. So they're going to have to support them and help them. Now, the big question for me is who's going to be number 3? Is it Stuart Skinner with the Oilers? Is it Marc-Andre Fleury?
Thompson?
Why not? Why the Logan Thompson's having a good season? But I'm saying, like, why not get a guy like Marc-Andre Fleury there? Because, look, maybe he's just the third goalie. He's just a good guy in the locker room. But maybe you need him to play a game, and he knows what it's like to play high-level, stressful type of games. So I think there's a valid discussion as to who the number 3 will be. Logan Thompson, Marc-Andre Fleury, and then there's that Joey Daccord discussion.
Yes,
you know, in Seattle. Is Joey Daccord American? Is he Canadian? Is he Swiss? Where could he fit in all of that? So that's still a big question mark when it comes to goaltending.
Did you go to Prague, Marty?
I did not. We did everything from studio. I've been to Prague before, and right before the Rangers season when we started in Europe. And it's one of those undercover, really beautiful city. You sit down for dinner at 8:00 at night. You walk out at 1:30 in the morning type of thing. So I'm glad that I got to stay in Buffalo and, kind of get my rest at the start of the season because I'd be struggling still here in the end of November.
Well, let me get this straight. What, you had a 5.5-hour dinner in Prague? What was going on, Marty?
You know what? We had 5-6 hour dinners. We'd start with dinner. We'd sit and have, beers and drinks. And then it'd be midnight. We'd be like, we're still hungry. Let's have another round of dinner. It was, man, we had so much fun. We did 4 countries in 6 days. We did Prague, we did Bratislava, we did Zurich, and we did Gothenburg, Sweden. So, and in Gothenburg, Sweden, that's where Henrik Lundqvist is from, right? He played in Frölunda over there. So we were treated like kings in Gothenburg. And then we went to Stockholm. Like, it was a tour of Europe with the Rangers. And I came back home and I slept for a straight week. Like, I was tired and I barely played. So imagine if I was one of those guys that played, it would have been a tough go.
Well, you had to sleep after the 5.5-hour dinner, Marty.
Yeah, there was more 5-hour dinners and late nights, that's for sure.
Hey, one more before we let you go. Back to the Sabres. 64-year-old Lindy Ruff, is he having fun back with Buffalo?
He's having a lot of fun. He's pushing the guys hard. When they came back from the West Coast trip, so they flew back on Sunday after playing Saturday in San Jose. He gave them Monday off because he believes in this, the trap game. When you return from the West Coast after a long road trip, your first home game is always a little bit sluggish. And then so Monday he gave him an extra day off, and Tuesday at practice, he did not like what he was seeing. So Wednesday morning, instead of having his assistants run the morning skate, Lindy Ruff was at center ice with the big whistle and running the drills. He wouldn't let him off the hook, right? And they played well against Minnesota. They lost 1-0. But yes, Lindy's having a lot of fun, but he's also being Lindy Ruff. He's tough. He's a no-nonsense type of guy, and you better respond and give him the effort. And so far, the Sabres have done that, but they just released yesterday a nice little video of Ryan Miller, Dominik Hasek, and Lindy Ruff having a beer in Prague and talking about it. And so I had some comments I made throughout the video about certain situations. And Lindy came to me a couple of days ago and he's like, hey, remember that time I beat you and I put the gear 3-on-3? And I'm like, yeah, I talked about it in the video. And he's laughing. He goes, yeah.
Above and beyond, Marty. This segment, by the way, brought to you by the Prague Tourism Bureau. I think we mentioned it 4 or 5 times. Yeah, thanks for this, Marty.
Have a good one, guys. Enjoy the afternoon, early afternoon hockey.
Yep,
It's
we will.
hockey. It's the Canucks and Sabres. People will. Thanks, Marty. Appreciate it.
Thanks.